producing garbage.
Nichols and May made anxiety funny before half of modern comedy figured out how to spell therapy. Mike Nichols and Elaine May walked on stage with nothing but timing, intelligence, and the strange ability to make a fake phone call sound like a tiny nervous breakdown. By the late 50s and early 60s, they were not just a comedy act. They were the act smart people quoted, comedians studied, and audiences treated like a secret they were proud to understand. But while the laughs looked effortless, the partnership was already carrying a problem that fame could not fix. While we're setting the stage, drop a comment. Tell us whether you think Nichols and May should have stayed together longer, or whether breaking up was the only way both of them could become who they were meant to be. Today we're going to talk about why Nichols and May broke up after only a few dazzling years. Chicago Spark.
Hello.
Hello, Arthur. This is your mother. Do you remember me?
Mom, I was just going to call you. Is that a funny thing? You know that I had my hand on the phone.
You were supposed to call me last Friday.
Well, honey, I know. I just didn't have a second, and I could cut my throat.
Arthur, I sat by that phone all day Friday.
Honey, I was working.
All day Friday night.
Darling, I was in the lab.
And all day Saturday.
And
all day Sunday.
Mom,
and your father finally said to me, Phyllis, eat something, you'll faint.
Mike Nichols and Elaine May first crossed paths in the world of University of Chicago theater, where comedy was less about punchlines and more about nerve. They were young, sharp, and not especially interested in being cute. Their humor came from irritation, intelligence, and the awkward little battles people have in conversation. Their early connection was not some sweet showbiz fairy tale. May could be brutally honest, and Nichols was sensitive enough to feel it, but smart enough to keep up. That tension became fuel. When they clicked, they did not sound like performers doing bits. They sounded like two people eavesdropping on the private embarrassment of American life. At the Compass Players, the Chicago group that helped shape modern improv, they learned to trust instinct. A scene could turn on one word, one pause, or one tiny change in tone. Nichols later understood that May gave him something no one else could. With her, he could leap without checking the floor. That's what made the act special. It was not just male comic and female partner. May was not there to be silly while Nichols explained the joke. She was often quicker, colder, stranger, and more dangerous. Their comedy worked because neither one surrendered. Fast fame.
Sir, this is information. Exactly what is it you want us to do?
Well,
what is your point?
Miss, you have my dime. I have to.
No, we do not have your dime, sir. If you want your dime, you have to hang up, sir. That's the way it works.
Miss, look, the dime is collected. Look, I know that sound. I've heard it all my life. The dime is in there with all those. Yes.
Information cannot argue with a closed mind. Why don't you try hanging up?
Because I can't take the chance, operator.
Once Nichols and May reached New York, everything moved ridiculously fast. They auditioned for powerful agent Jack Rollins, started appearing on television, played nightclubs, recorded albums, and became the kind of sensation that makes people say, you had to be there, even when the recordings prove you still can be. Their sketches caught the mood of a changing country. They joked about therapy, dating, education, medicine, mothers, and manners with the kind of adult intelligence that felt new. They were not standing at microphones firing jokes. They were building tiny plays, where the joke was how badly people understood themselves. Then came Broadway. An Evening with Mike Nichols and Elaine May opened in 1960 and became a major hit. For most performers, that would have been the dream. For Nichols and May, it was also a cage with velvet seats. Success made them famous, but it also made the act repeatable. The very thing that had begun as spontaneous discovery became something audiences expected every night. The danger of improv had been polished into a show, and for May especially, the polish may have started to feel like a trap. The Broadway Problem.
Anyway, Doctor.
Yeah.
Just as we're coming out of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Everyone in the dream suddenly turns to me and says, look, there goes Gertrude Ederle.
Yeah.
Well, I don't say anything.
Yeah.
And I give Goldie the reins of the elephant to hold because I want to pay the good humor man for the popsicle.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Well, suddenly Goldie turns to me and she gets very uppity and she says, if you can afford a popsicle, hold your own elephant.
She wouldn't take the elephant.
No. Well, what do you make of that?
Well, Mrs. Van Loon, you know, I see a pattern becoming clear in all of your dreams, and I think in this one it's unmistakable.
Yeah.
Your unconscious is telling you not to forget to file your income tax return early.
On paper, Nichols and May had everything. They had prestige, money, famous fans, hit records, and a Broadway run that turned them into comedy royalty. Nichols seemed able to accept the bargain, do the show, enjoy the fame, and live the rest of the day. May appears to have felt it differently. For someone built around experiment, repetition could feel like creative suffocation. Even if a performance lasted less than 2 hours, the psychic weight of doing the same thing again and again was not small. The act depended on surprise, and surprise is hard to preserve once it becomes a job. Nichols later remembered that May wanted something more. His version was simple and revealing. She did not want to keep going just because the act worked. She had other creative territory to explore, and she was not willing to spend her life inside a partnership that the public loved more than she did. So the breakup was not really a mystery of hatred or scandal. It was a collision between two artists with different appetites. Nichols could see the act as a lucky miracle. May could see it as a room she had already explored. The split.
How funny, that's just happening to me. No, it's happening to me, not one, but 2 studios.
Oh my God.
I'm working on 2 movies in 2 studios. The regime is changing as we speak. One is happening over this weekend.
The actual end came in 1961, when the duo stopped performing together as a regular act. That date still feels shocking because they had barely had time to become legendary before they were gone. For audiences, it looked like walking away from a winning lottery ticket. Nichols took the loss hard. He later said, "Not only had I lost my best friend, I lost my work. I was the half of something." That line explains the breakup better than any gossip could. The act was not just his job, it was his identity. May, meanwhile, did not vanish. She moved towards writing, directing, and a more private kind of power. Nichols seemed to need a structure, then discovered directing almost by accident and realized he knew exactly what to do. May seemed to resist structures that tried to contain her. It's why the breakup still fascinates people. It was not a simple case of 2 egos exploding. It was more painful than that. They loved the same language, but they did not want the same life. After the act.
I'm a big believer in, I tell this to the acting students all the time, in downtime, in the time when you're not working on something or not even thinking about it. Those 7 years of not making movies taught me more about making movies than the years I spent making movies.
What did it teach you?
Relax.
Nichols found his next chapter quickly. He became a major stage director, then moved into film with Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf and The Graduate. The transition made him one of the great director success stories of the era. May's path was more complicated and in some ways more revealing. She wrote, acted, directed, rewrote scripts without always taking credit, and built a reputation as one of the sharpest minds in Hollywood. She also fought studios, ignored easy expectations, and paid for that independence. They did reunite from time to time, which tells us the breakup was not a clean emotional divorce. They appeared together again, supported causes, and later worked in connected ways. May wrote The Birdcage in primary colors, both directed by Nichols. The partnership changed shape, but it never fully disappeared. Decades later, Nichols could still joke that it was May's fault because she wanted to stop. The joke lands because there was truth inside it, but also affection. After 65 years, the clearest answer is that Nichols and May broke up because Elaine May needed more than the act could give, and Mike Nichols had to lose the partnership before finding the director he was becoming. Now it's time to hear from you. Was Elaine May right to walk away while the act was still brilliant? Or do you think Nichols and May had another decade of classic comedy left in them? Let us know in the comments section below.